You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about Vermont. So, Nora?
Yes, Lauren?
Let's get scary.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome, welcome.
So, Lauren, what were you going to tell us?
Okay, so Joe and I have been having a lot of really weird serendipity moments. Like, I can't think of all of them, of course, but this weekend we watched The Visit, like that M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
It's good.
Yeah.
And so a podcast I was listening to today, the host was like, oh, I just watched The Visit this weekend. And I was like, what? But we just have so many weird moments like that. Like, there was one that happened when we were watching One Tree Hill. I can't remember what it was. But there are so many weird serendipity moments. And I don't know why, but all of a sudden they're just like, all here.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. And then I also have an exciting thing that I did today. So I do Orange Theory, as does Nora.
Uh-huh.
And today was like Everest Day.
I skipped it.
And I did it today. And I beat my old distance by 0.1.
Good job.
Woohoo!
That's awesome.
I was so happy. I got off the treadmill and I was like, I don't care how the rest of this workout goes. I did this.
Good
and
for you.
I haven't been able to shower since we are recording now, so I apologize.
Yeah.
Nora.
Oh my gosh, everyone has to listen to the podcast Something Was Wrong. I don't know if I've talked about it.
I've heard of it.
So the seasons I would say are worth listening to are the first, season 1 and then season 9. And season 9 is the most recent. Season 1 and 9 are so good. You have to listen to them. Like I listened to it all the way here.
And what are they about?
So it's about people. So all of the seasons are different, but 1 and 9 are about relationships. And it's about people in a relationship. And pretty much that's all I can say. But you can kind of tell by the title. Like, yeah. It's just, and it's crazy because it's real. Like this,
is it scary?
I would say it is a little scary, but more so like for safety.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so interesting. So yeah, everyone should watch it and then message us and I'll talk about it with you.
Yeah. Also, if you hear any weird noises in the background, that is Roy. Like I said, he gets excited when Nora comes over, and in his excitement, he wants to play with toys.
Yeah.
So I gave him his quiet toy, but shaking it all over the place. So...
All right, so this week we're covering Vermont. So here are the state facts. Vermont, nicknamed the Green Mountain State, joined the Union on March 4th, 1791, and became the 14th state.
2 days after my birthday.
Ooh. Vermont was the first state to join the Union after the American Revolution. Vermont got its name from the French words vert, meaning green, and mont, meaning mountain. Cool. Makes sense why it's called the Green Mountain State. Yes, it does. Some weird laws in Vermont. You are not allowed to undress in public, as that is illegal. But if you want to leave your house already naked, that's totally fine. Don't whistle underwater, as that's also illegal.
How do you whistle underwater?
It's literally blowing bubbles.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe someone drowned doing it, so they're like, no one can do it.
I don't know.
You must bathe every Saturday night if you are a resident of Bar.
Huh.
That is interesting. Vermont is ranked the second safest state in the whole U.S. So actually, it's funny because when I was doing research, it said that Vermont was the third safest state.
Maybe it is changed.
I don't know like why I remembered that, but I was like, it kind of makes sense.
Maybe times have changed in the however many years between things.
But the point is, it's a very safe state.
Yes, because no one lives there.
Exactly. There is a grave in New Haven that has a window looking into it. That grave belongs to Timothy Clark Smith. He feared being buried alive, which is a valid fear, so he had a window placed above his grave that looked straight upon his face in case he was, in fact, buried alive.
I don't like that at all.
I don't like that at all either.
The
Ben and Jerry's ice cream graveyard is located in Waterbury. This cemetery is dedicated to all of the new flavors that were designed but never made the cut to be actually produced. 2 examples are Ms. Jelena sweet potato pie, which...
I don't think that would be
Oh
good.
my gosh, Ian hates sweet potato. He would never eat that. And coffee, buzz, buzz, buzz.
I think that would be delicious.
That would be good. There's an old legend in Vermont, and it says that during particularly cold winters, in order to save money and conserve resources, residents would freeze their older relatives at the beginning of the winter and thaw them out in the spring. That's horrible.
Do you think that actually works? I doubt it.
They would die.
They would die.
But I think it's mean if you're like, you better drive me to the mall, Grandma, or I'm going to freeze you. Like, use that as a threat. That's so mean. Vermont has its very own Loch Ness monster who lives in Lake Champlain. A local Native American tribe, the Abenaki, that's how I would say it, the Abenaki. Let me check it out real quick.
Or Abenaki.
Abenaki, good job.
Oh, thank you.
A local Native American tribe, the Abenaki, once warned French explorers to be wary of the monsters in the lake.
Oh, there are so many states that have like weird Loch Ness type monsters.
Yeah.
Like Georgia, we covered what was its name? Well, we covered the one in Georgia.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of it either.
Yeah, I can't either. It was a cute name too.
Yeah. It was like blee blee blue blue, something like
I really don't think that was it.
That's what I remember. Blee blee.
All right. So I went a little crazy with my notes because I just found so much stuff. So, located just north of Bennington, Vermont, lies an area of land which seems to be a hotbed of paranormal and unexplained activity, such as UFO sightings, shadowy figures, Bigfoot, and even flesh-eating rocks. Ooh. An area of land that, since it was founded in 1761 by Benning Wentworth, has been reported as strange. Even in pre-colonial times, there have been tales of mysterious lights, weird untraceable sounds, and unidentifiable odors. This area is known as the Bennington Triangle.
Ooh.
Named by Joseph Citro, an author from New England, in 1992. Citro writes about all of the strange tales from this area in his 1996 book titled Passing Strange, True Tales of New England Hauntings and Horror. Citro says that the Bennington Triangle shares many characteristics with the Bridgewater Triangle, located in southeastern Massachusetts, which also has tales of strange and unexplainable things. This triangle reaches to the surrounding towns, to include Bennington, Woodford, Shaftesbury, and Somerset. And in the center of this triangle are the Glastonbury Mountains.
Okay, all of these places sound like places in England.
Yeah. Oh god, it scared me. That's Joe.
Oh my gosh.
So these mountains are in the Green Mountain National Forest and are part of the Green Mountains, which is what the state got its name from. A very popular trail in these mountains is the Long Trail, part of the Appalachian Trail, which is a 272-mile hiking trail that runs the length of Vermont and goes through the summit of the mountains. This is considered a long-distance trail and is actually the oldest in the United States. So even before anyone settled these areas, the Native American tribes who had originally lived in the area would travel out of their way to avoid the mountains, as they believed it was cursed. They would only travel to the mountain in order to bury their dead. One eerie thing about this mountain is that it's devoid of the sound of birds and insects. So, like, if you think about it, how creepy would that be to be in the woods with no animal noise?
Yeah, it would be, like, super eerie.
Yeah. An Algonquian legend actually warned of a malevolent man-eating stone, which is said to open up and devour those unlucky enough to step on it. This stone is said to be located at the tip-top of the mountain, so anyone who made it to the summit and wanted to stand on this rock to get an even better view of the area would be swallowed up by the stone. There are accounts of sinkholes in these woods, though, which could potentially explain how someone could just get swallowed up by the earth, but still. There are also these formations called cairns all around the mountains. They are odd, seemingly man-made piles of rocks that have no explanation for how they were formed or why they show up where they do. They just show up around the mountain. No one knows who formed them, why, where they chose. It's just kind of all over the mountain, which is weird.
Like, there's no science behind how it got... Oh.
It has to be man-made because it's not, like, a naturally occurring thing.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, but people don't know if it was made, like, really long ago or if people are doing it to, like, scare people, but it's very weird.
I just find it so interesting how you can tell history by, like, the rocks, like, things carved in them. I just think that's so fascinating.
Yeah, that's really cool. They also believe that the four winds met here, causing the curse. These winds are strong, and actually the plant life on the mountain shows that. Plants on this mountain don't grow in the same way. Some lean towards one way while others lean another, all because of these winds. They're also so bad that they have been known to disorient hikers, coupled with all of the different facing plants. I can't even imagine how mixed up you could get.
Yeah.
The Native Americans believed that these winds caused eternal friction, which brought about the curse. These mountains were also once a prosperous town for lumber and charcoal, but in the late 1800s, the area had been stripped of all of its natural resources. And all wasn't perfect in the town, and some strange things were already happening. Before its decline, there were 2 reported murders in the area. In 1892, Henry Mcdowell, a sawmill worker, stated that he heard voices telling him to attack his coworker.
Schizophrenic?
I don't know. Well, he did so, and drunkenly bludgeoned his coworker Jim Crowley to death with a rock. He was committed to an asylum but somehow escaped, and he was never caught. Only 5 years later, in 1897, John Harbour, a prominent citizen of Woodford, went out to Bickford Hollow, south of Glastonbury, to hunt. While out hunting, he was shot and killed by an unknown person or thing. He was found with his fully loaded gun right next to him. This murder still remains unsolved. By 1937, the town of Glastonbury had become a ghost town. And just 8 years later, the first recorded disappearance occurred in the area. Between the years of 1945 and 1950, 6 to 8 hikers had gone missing, and only one body has been recovered. So who are these missing hikers, and what happened? I will tell you.
I want to hear.
Mitty Rivers was the first recorded disappearance in the area. He was 74 years old and even a mountain guide. He had grown up in the area, so he knew it, and he knew it well. He actually made a living as a hunting and a mountain guide. Mm-hmm. Well, on November 12, 1945, Rivers was in the southwest part of the woods leading a party of 4 hunters to an area called Hell Hollow. Not a place I would go. The trip was going well as the men neared the area of the Long Trail. At that point, and as the hunters finished up, Rivers started to lead them back to camp. Rivers started walking ahead of the group, which didn't concern the hunters at first. They figured that Rivers was just walking ahead to see what was up there, clear out the path if needed, whatever may be needed, so the hunters weren't worried. They watched as he turned a corner up ahead of them, and as they approached the same corner, they also turned it, expecting to see Rivers, but he was gone. Absolutely nowhere to be seen. They set their stuff down to wait for him to return, but soon, minutes of waiting turned to hours, and Rivers still didn't return, which immediately concerned the men. They were able to somehow make their way back to where they had started their hike and inform the authorities. An extensive search was conducted by police and volunteers. Army soldiers from Fort Devens in Massachusetts also came to help aid in the search. It went on for 8 days, but no evidence whatsoever was found.
Wow.
Except a single rifle cartridge, which was found in a stream. So how would a skilled huntsman just disappear?
Well, this sounds like the Adirondacks.
Yeah.
There was a case that you talked about when it was like a very experienced
Yes!
hiker.
That's the creepy thing.
Yeah.
When people who know the area and know the woods go missing.
And it's also creepy because that's like the same, like it's not the Adirondacks, but it's in the same like part of the country.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
That's
I didn't
so
think
weird.
about that. So one speculation for why the rifle cartridge was found is that Rivers had bent over for something, which caused it to fall out of his pocket, but that's literally the only speculation that's been put forward. No one knows what happened after he bent down or why he would have bent down. Others believe that maybe something was coming at him and he needed to fire his gun to protect himself. But nothing else has been found since. He had disappeared along the Long Trail area and Vermont Route 9. A year later, another person would fall victim to these woods. Paula Jean Walden, who was born and raised in Stamford, Connecticut, was an 18-year-old sophomore attending Bennington College. In the newspaper at the time, Bennington College was described as a fashionable college. Don't know what that means, but I don't think I would fit in.
Same. Workout clothes all day.
Yep.
Me too.
Paula was majoring in art at the time of her disappearance, but according to her friends and those who knew her, she was interested in botany, which is the study of plants and such. They even said that she had been planning on changing her major from art to botany. This would make sense too, because also according to her friends, Paula loved the outdoors and loved to go hiking. On December 1st, 1946, around 2:45 p.m., Paula had just gotten off of work and headed back to her dorm. In her dorm, she was chatting with her roommate while she mentioned that she was planning on taking a hike to clear her head. Her roommate said that Paula dressed in some jeans, sneakers, and a light red coat. But being December in Vermont, this light coat may not have been warm enough, but on this day, in the afternoon, a light coat would have been appropriate for the weather. This coat, being light, also showed her roommate that she wasn't planning on being out long, because at nightfall the temperatures would be dropping drastically. So she set out alone on the Long Trail from Woodford Hollow. She headed northbound on Long Trail in the direction of the mountains. Many people saw her head out to the hike. She even received directions from a man named Ernest Whitman, who worked for the Bennington Banner, which is a newspaper in Bennington, Vermont. While on the trail, she was also allegedly seen by an elderly couple who was only about 100 yards or 91 meters behind her. The couple stated that they could see her up ahead of them for most of their walk. She then turned a corner, but when the couple reached that same corner, she was gone. And that's odd considering she's wearing a red jacket in December and no one could see her. Like, you'd be able to see that through, like, the bare trees and stuff.
Snatched. So
she never returned to campus that night. When morning rolled around and she still wasn't in her dorm, her roommate informed Paula's parents and the authorities, which led to an extensive search being conducted. So Paula's father was a very influential and wealthy man, so the search was big. Over 1,000 people volunteered to search the area for Paula. Departments from other states got involved, the National Guard was brought in, the FBI was involved, aircraft searched from the air, and a $5,000 reward was offered for any information. But a weird factoid. Apparently, when Paula's roommate Elizabeth called Paula's family and broke the news to them that Paula never came home, her mother collapsed out of grief and was bedridden. And I get it. I get being scared that your daughter's missing, but to have that much of a crippling state where you're bedridden before you even hear any additional information is kind of weird.
That's weird.
Like, why is that what you're going to jump to? Like, oh my God, she's never coming back.
You're just assuming she's dead.
Yeah, like she hasn't even been gone for 24 hours.
Yeah, that's sus.
So it's kind of weird. So even though there was an extensive search, no clues came forward, no evidence was retrieved, and her body was never found. Of course, there were many theories circulating around about what happened to Paula. Foul play is one of those theories suspected in her disappearance. Maybe she encountered someone on her hike who had bad intentions. Another is that she apparently wasn't wearing a better jacket on the hike and wasn't prepared for when the weather dropped from 50 degrees quickly down to 9 degrees.
I mean, if she was into fashion, then maybe she wasn't thinking about the weather.
Maybe.
Like with her clothing,
At a fashionable college.
Yeah.
And for all of our other listeners who don't use the stupid system we do, that would be 10 degrees Celsius down to negative 12 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Another theory is that she ran off and moved to Canada with her boyfriend, whom she had apparently been having a secret relationship with.
No way.
But Paula's roommate didn't believe this story, as she had never heard about a boy, doesn't believe Paula would do anything like that, especially how she only left with a light jacket and nothing else to indicate she would be running away.
That's honestly so insulting to make up that theory.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
Yeah.
Another is that she became a recluse and just started living in the mountains. But I only heard this in one place, and I think that seems really unlikely.
Yeah.
Paula's roommate Elizabeth also was her friend and stated that Paula had been having issues and problems with her family back home in Connecticut. So much so that she didn't go home for Thanksgiving. There was even an uncashed check from her wealthy parents that she never cashed. Apparently, many people believe that her parents were in on her disappearance and maybe were even the ones to organize it. Like I said, her dad was a wealthy guy and had many connections in the area. But who's to say?
Dang.
So her disappearance had been posted in the newspaper all around the city and the surrounding cities. Well, in Fall River, Massachusetts, which is about 3 hours from Bennington College, a waitress claimed that a woman matching Paula's description down to the red jacket came into the diner with a man. Paula seemed, quote, out of sorts, but the woman, rightfully so, didn't take note of this because it seemed insignificant at the time to the waitress until the newspaper came out and the disappearance was reported.
Oh my gosh.
Well, apparently, Paula's father heard about this waitress's sighting. Instead of calling authorities and having them check out the claim, he went to Fall Rivers on his own. It is unknown what he did while he was there or what he said to the waitress, but absolutely nothing came of the sighting, and Paula's father later said that the woman the waitress had seen wasn't Paula.
Wow.
So, again, little sus. As I mentioned, Paula was wearing red when she went missing. Many locals believe that wearing red in these mountains is just an invitation for trouble and bad luck. Interesting, especially with how often this red jacket of hers is mentioned. The story of her disappearance actually became the inspiration for the 1951 novel titled Hangs a Man, written by Shirley Jackson. So I looked up the description of this book, and it actually sounds like an interesting book. But I don't see how it's related to Walden's disappearance at all, other than the fact that there's an overbearing father. Like, that's the only similarity I could find.
So she just took that piece, I guess,
yeah,
if it's true.
Because I was, like, reading the description. I was like, okay, when is the girl going to go missing? Oh, This is it. Oh, nope, not there. Like, not at all. And then it turns out to seem like it might be a feel-good book.
Yeah.
Not really sure. Kind of interested, though.
Oh, real quick. I just finished a book about a girl who went missing that was super good called The Woman in Cabin 10.
Did I read that?
Is
it
really
on a ship?
Interesting. Yes.
Yes.
You read that?
I've read that.
What?
Yeah. I can't remember what happened, but yeah, I've definitely read that.
Yeah, I just finished it.
Do remember it being really good.
Yeah.
I like how we like the same books.
I know, right?
Joe got me one called The Whisper Man. Did I already tell you about this one?
No.
Okay, so super quick. It's about like the serial killer who whispers to people before he kills them. So you know you're going to be next because he'll like whisper to you outside your window.
Oh, that's horrible.
And so there's this detective who's on the case until he hears that his son has been hearing whispering outside of his window. I haven't started it yet because I'm kind of scared.
Tell me how it is.
I will. Ugh. So, back to the case. Her disappearance remained a cold case until 1955. A local lumberjack one night claimed to have followed Paula down the long trail while she was hiking. He joked and laughed, then made a bold claim. He claimed he knew where Paula's body was. He was immediately pulled into questioning, but during the investigation, he claimed he was lying, blowing smoke, and with no evidence or anything else relating this man to the crime, he was released. Her case also caused Vermont to form their own state police force, as they didn't have their own force when she disappeared, which is why so many other departments had to be called in. So it's like the nice silver lining, but still. This case is arguably the most infamous missing persons case in Vermont and is still open to this day.
Wow.
Then we have James Tedford, also spelled Teford or Tedford, but he was a 68-year-old veteran who had re-enlisted in 1941 to serve on World War II and was the third to disappear. So I don't believe he was 68 when he re-enlisted, because that'd be kind of crazy. But James was married to a much younger woman named Pearl. Pearl was only 28 years old. Wow. But by all accounts, the two had a very happy marriage. But one day in
Wait, what was the age difference?
68 and 28. So 40 years.
Okay.
Like drastic.
I thought the age difference in my story was bad. Yours is double.
Oh God, yeah, drastic. So, but by all accounts, the two had a very happy marriage. So, you do you.
Yeah.
But one day in 1946, James came home after being out all day and noticed his wife wasn't home, which he was pretty sure she should have been. The house was clean and a warm meal was waiting for James, so it was clear that she had recently been home. Initially, he wasn't too worried, as he assumed that Pearl was just out running errands. But soon it started to get late and James started to get worried. He began going around asking his neighbors if any of them had seen Pearl that day or had any idea where she might be. All of his neighbors relayed that they had not seen her, except one. His one neighbor was the only person who saw her that day and said that he saw Pearl heading to the local grocery store and that was the last time Pearl was ever seen. She had simply disappeared. Many believed she had simply run away. She was young, James wasn't, and maybe she ran away to start a new life somewhere. But that didn't make any sense either. Nothing had been missing from the house, no suitcases were gone, none of her clothes were gone, just everything was there. And also, why would she have gone grocery shopping if she didn't plan to return home?
Yeah.
Well, after she vanished, James went into a depressive state. He became housebound, he wouldn't leave his home, and all he would do all day was stare at the walls within his house. But finally, in 1947, James decided to move into the Bennington Soldiers' Retirement Home. But even there, he was still acting the same way he had before in that very depressive state. But he had family who he would visit regularly who lived in St. Albans, so from time to time, James would take the 8-hour bus ride from Bennington to St. Albans to visit his family. The bus would take Route 7, which went straight through the Bennington Triangle.
There's a Route 7 in Virginia.
Yeah, that I hate.
I know, you're telling me.
Ugh. James visited his family, and at the end of his trip, his family accompanied him to the local bus, which would take him home. But that day, December 1st, 1949, exactly 3 years to the day after Paula went missing, was the last time that Tedford was ever seen. According to witnesses, Tedford did board the bus and was still on the bus along with 14 other riders at the last stop. I have a leaf on my sock. At the last stop before it would have reached Bennington. But somewhere between that last stop and Bennington, Tedford disappeared, just completely vanished. What's creepy is his luggage was still on the luggage rack above the seat. His personal belongings, like his wallet, ID, and itinerary, were on his seat. And the turntable in front of him was still open at his vacant spot. No one saw James get off the bus. He just simply disappeared. Still, no trace of him has been found, and no explanation has been put forward.
Wow.
Then we have Paul Jepsen. He was only 8 years old when he disappeared on October 12th, 1950, Columbus Day. Paul had been with his mom in a truck when she left him unattended for about an hour while she fed some pigs. Her family owned a lumber yard or something with pigs. He had been playing in the cab of the truck and had been given strict instruction by his mother to not leave the truck. But when she returned, her son was nowhere to be found. Immediately, search parties were formed to find little Paul. Nothing was ever found of him, not even the bright red jacket he had been wearing. One story states that bloodhounds tracked his scent to a local highway but stopped there. Local legend says that this is the same spot where Paula Walden disappeared about 4 years earlier. Another source said that his scent made it to the middle of the trail before it abruptly ended. But either way, he was heading towards the mountain. His father later said that Paul had been excited and had been talking about nothing but visiting the mountain for days before his disappearance. His father believes that it was the lure of the mountains that pulled Paul in. There is also the other theory that his parents are the ones who killed him, feeding him to their pigs.
Wow.
And then the last one we have is Frida Langer. Just 16 days later, on October 28, 1950, 53-year-old Frida Langer went missing. Her and her cousin Herbert Elsner were camping near the Somerset Reservoir and decided to head out on a hike. But on the hike, Langer slipped and fell into a nearby stream. She got out of the water, and because she was soaking wet, she asked her cousin if he would wait for her while she quickly ran back to the campsite and changed. But after waiting for some time, Langer never caught up with her cousin, so he turned around and headed back to the campsite only to discover that she hadn't shown up there either. Searches began, and over the next 2 weeks, 5 different searches were conducted. The searches involved aircraft, helicopters, and over 300 volunteers, but all of the searches yielded nothing. Then a few months later, on May 12, 1951, Langer's body was found in an area that had been searched 7 months prior in gruesome condition. She was found 3.5 miles from her camp in the east branch of the Deerfield River area, but due to the conditions of her remains, no cause of death was able to be determined. Her body is the only body of anyone who's disappeared who has been found.
Wow.
So there's nothing that links these 5 in any way, other than
they're like a lot of years apart, too.
Yeah, other than the general area where they disappeared. 2 of them had been wearing red, though. But something interesting I noticed is that all 5 disappeared in that 5-year gap in either October, November, December, and all were last seen at about the same time, between 3 and 4 p.m.
Ooh.
Tyler Retch, a local historian in the area and author of Glastonbury, The History of a Vermont Ghost Town, doesn't believe in any supernatural, weird, or any other type of events have happened in the area. He believes that all of the stories have been made up just to benefit writers, namely Citro. He also believes that out of the disappearances listed, that Mitty Rivers is the only documented case of a disappearance in Glastonbury. He wrote, quote, "There is no evidence that Walden ever set foot in the town of Glastonbury."
What?
I guess what he means here is that she disappeared in a nearby town, which is still technically in Bennington.
But it's not in
It said she was hiking in the Long Trail, so who knows? I don't really know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But there are many others who are aware of these disappearances. So now let's get into some of the things people think are responsible. Some believe that the disappearances are due to the work of a serial killer, as they all went missing in the same months and were in the same area. But some say there is no way it could be a serial killer because one body was found, they all ranged in age from old to young, and it was a mix of males and females. This mysterious potential serial killer has also been given the names of the Bennington Ripper and the Mad Murderer of the Long Trail. But still, there's no evidence of this being the work of a serial killer. But an interesting note, during the time of these disappearances, police departments all over were not familiar with the term of serial killer or how they operated. So if there was a killer doing all of this, there wouldn't have been anything documented because they didn't know what a serial killer was.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And they wouldn't have known what patterns to look for.
Exactly.
Like, it's too late.
Yep.
It could be too late.
Yeah, and it was over a 5-year time span. Like, that's a lot of time. Maybe portals are responsible. GhostHuntingTheories.com says that portals are simply a location where a wide variety of unexplained phenomena occurs in a defined geographic area, including the Bennington Triangle on that list. A portal reports a lot of odd, unexplained, and sometimes frightening phenomena, which is different from a vortex, which creates a spiritual energy that can be uplifting and inspiring. So the Bennington Triangle is believed to be a portal. Which makes a lot of sense based on what people have described seeing in the mountains. Some believe that these portals are likely gateways and that those who have simply disappeared have just walked through a portal. Could it be aliens and UFOs? Many sightings of UFOs and strange lights have been reported in the sky over the mountains. The most notable one occurred in 1984. Don Pratt saw a flying silo-shaped anomaly in the skies over Bennington. Even American journalist and ufologist, UFOologist.
That's a
ufologist.
thing?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it's literally spelled UFOologist.
That's so funny.
It's like a ufologist. John A. Keel believes that UFOs could be present in the area. He describes the Bennington Triangle as well as the Bridgewater Triangle as window areas. So this is an area or place that is some sort of interdimensional doorway or vortex that could lead to another world. So this could fall into like that portal idea I mentioned. Some say that there are satanic groups in the area and they are responsible for the disappearances, and that even Paula's parents were part of a group. And they knew
if her mom reacted like that.
Yep. And they knew it was happening to their daughter, but I wasn't able to find anything about it. So I was like, okay, I need to search satanic groups in the area. So I actually legit searched in Google, satanic groups near Glastonbury Mountain. So that probably wasn't the best thing to search. Because it pulled up a search result for a website that would help me find satanic groups in my area that I could meet up with.
Oh, God.
So I was like, ooh, not the best warning.
That's so alarming.
Yeah, because it was like one of those things like, meet singles in your area. This is
meet
like
satanic singles.
No, it was like satanic groups in your area. Ways to meet up.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, ooh, not what I want to be
It's like Christian
searching.
Mingle, but like satanic single.
Yeah. It's so bad. So some believe, though, that these people just met their demise at the hands or paws of a mountain lion, like a lynx, bobcat, or catamount. But lynx and bobcats aren't known to be aggressive towards humans, and the catamount has not been sighted since 1940 and has been declared extinct. Others blame the Indian curse or the paranormal. They state that the place is a window into the unexplained. Others say that the area is unstable due to wind patterns in the area, like I listed. The wind is chaotic and confusing, which can cause people to get disoriented and lost. But others just say that the elements are what took the person, like hypothermia, whatever, but those bodies haven't been found, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's weird.
There have been 2 other disappearances that, for whatever reason, aren't as talked about. One is a report of 3 Massachusetts hunters who went missing in the area in 1949, and another is the disappearance of 13-year-old Melvin Hills, who disappeared in 1942 in Bennington. But more recently, some remains have been found. On September 17th, 2019...
What?
In a gravel pit near Somerset Reservoir, the jawbone of a 34-year-old Jessica Hildenbrandt was found. Hildenbrandt was from New York and was nicknamed Red, like the unlucky color in the triangle.
Oh my gosh.
Then in August of this year, 2021, 73-year-old Joseph Schoening was found dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was found in his truck, which was in a parking area in the Somerset Reservoir. Can you guess what color his truck was?
Red.
Oh my
Isn't
that creepy?
That's weird. I don't like that.
Yeah. So I found a story about a man who went missing, but was found alive and lived to tell about his tale, so it's like really creepy. So this was posted in the Bennington Banner on October 4th, 2008 in an article titled Lost in Glastonbury, written by John D. Waller, the staff writer. So Robert Singley was a 27-year-old music composition teacher at Bennington College. His last name was literally Singley, and he was a music competition.
Oh my gosh,
isn't that cool?
So funny.
Yeah. So it's very fitting.
Yeah.
So one Sunday, Singley decided to go hiking in the Bennington Triangle. He chose the path off Harper Road in Woodford Hollow, which is actually near where Paula Walden had last been seen some 62 years ago. His plan for the day was to hike and do some composing as he was working on a string quartet. Singley had enjoyed some lunch on top of Bald Mountain. When he finished, he walked for a little bit along the ridge line north towards Glastonbury, then turned around and checked out the White Rocks, which are to the west. He then turned east and started heading back towards his car.
Very thoughtful afternoon.
Yeah, just, chilling, writing your string quartet. Oh my God. Have you ever... Okay. Ow! I'm getting a foot cramp.
Oh no.
Okay, my family and I, my mom and I, and my grandma, we have this thing called down toe. That's what we call it. You literally, your toe, you see it go down, and it hurts so bad. It's so weird. I don't know what it is. It's just our family.
Like a muscle spasm?
Kind of. And it hurts so bad, and it feels like I'm about to get it, and if it does, I'm going to scream. It hurts so bad. Okay, so back to Singley. He walked for about 4 or 5 miles when his car should have only been about 3 miles away. That's when the fog started to roll in and started to get dark. He told the interviewer, because this was all during an interview, quote, "Right before I lost the trail, everything crescendoed into this weird sort of dizzying confusion. It just suddenly got dark, and then I was like, where am I? What's going on? I was totally lost." Singley went to reach for his headlamp that was in his pack, but when he pulled it out, he realized it was broken. So here he is, in the woods, by himself, with no compass, no GPS, no map, no watch, no headlamp. He wasn't able to locate the trail he needed to be on, so he found a large maple and took refuge there. About the tree, he said, quote, "I was kind of drawn to it in the night. It was really expelling a weird sort of, I don't know, a really weird haunting energy, whatever that means," end quote. Yeah. After much difficulty, he was able to start a fire using some dry birch he found, his matches, and pages from a composition book he had with him. What I was reading, though, was as he was trying to find these, pieces of birch, he kept, pulling animal bones.
Oh.
Yeah. So the night was eerily quiet, except for the call of the Fisher cat. But it's not a cat. It's a weasel thing. So no cat at all.
Yeah.
But the sounds of it. At this point, little did he know that his fiancée was worried about him when he didn't return home, so she had called the police. But the search had to be suspended until the morning due to the dark and foggy conditions. So morning came, and Singley got up and started walking towards where he thought his car was. He walked for an additional 3 to 4 miles before he reached a wilderness sign, a sign that told him he was near the Goddard Shelter, which was almost at the peak of the mountain. Singley told the reporter that this whole time he thought he was only about a quarter mile from his car, but instead he had ended up on the other side of the ridge, about 6 to 7 miles from where he had originally thought he was. He recalls how this didn't make any logical sense. Knowing that he was near the peak of the mountain, he decided to turn around. On his way back, he passed the maple that he had stayed under just the previous night. But he said that now the trail seemed completely foreign. There were trees down across the trail. The pines looked different. He said it was things that he wouldn't have missed the first time. Finally, at 11:30 a.m. on Monday, the Vermont State Police found Singley. But Singley is still confused about where he was that morning. He said, quote, "Either I took a side trail, which doesn't really make sense, or something weird happened." A similar thing happened to Chad Abramovic. He and a few friends decided to spend some time on the mountain. They drove up the bumpy road until they got to a clearing in the middle of the hills. They said they found cellar holes that had been hidden by tall grasses. As they were enjoying their time there, the weather drastically changed. The sunny July afternoon quickly turned into a torrential thunderstorm. The group was stranded until they were eventually able to make it back to flatland. But the weird part, the area surrounding where they had been was bone dry. Locals in the area later confirmed that there had been no thunderstorms that day. So another completely different weird thing in this Bennington Triangle is the Bennington Monster. So the monster has been described as a Bigfoot-like creature who is said to roam around the Glastonbury mountain area. The first reported sighting was in early 1800s. A stagecoach full of passengers had to stop when they came upon a washed-out road. Things got spooky when the driver of the stagecoach noticed that in the mud were large footprints that were too large to belong to a human. Suddenly, the coach was attacked by a large creature who actually knocked it over onto its side. All that the frightened passengers could see were a pair of eyes staring at them before the creature roared and ran back into the woods. The passengers described this creature as being large, hairy, and black. It was also described as tall, standing over 6 feet or 1.82 meters. In 1943, a man named Carl Herrick went missing in the area. Herrick had been hunting with his cousin Henry when he went missing about 10 miles northeast of the ghost town. Henry returned back to their camp, but Carl never did. 3 days later, Carl's body was found, surrounded by huge footprints. His ribs had punctured his lungs. His cause of death? Squeezing.
What?
Mm-hmm. Experts say that a bear could not have squeezed someone to death.
Yeah.
So these aren't the only times that the Bennington Monster sightings have been reported. In September of 2003, Ray DeFresney from Winooski, Vermont, was on a drive heading to Glastonbury Mountain. On his way, he saw a large black thing by the road. He described it as being well over 6 feet tall and hairy from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. On September 16th, 2003, so the same year, just like a couple days later, another man, a writer named Doug Dorst, was driving near Bennington College. On his drive, he saw someone that looked like a man in a snowsuit. But as he got closer, he noticed the thing wasn't quite human. Many other reports came out in 2003 about people witnessing something very similar in the same area. At the time, local law enforcement was convinced that this creature was just the town prankster Michael Green, but Green denied it, saying that he wasn't dumb enough to run around in the woods in a furry costume during hunting season.
Oh my gosh.
But another type of monster appeared in 1967. The Wild Man of Glastonbury, or the other Bennington Monster, lived in a cave near Somerset. But he would wander into Glastonbury and other locations inside of the Bennington Triangle to harass women. He would do this by walking up to a woman, pulling apart his tattered old coat, and revealing himself. All the while waving a pistol in a way to deter someone from stopping him.
He was pistol whipping.
Oh my God, Nora. After he did this, he would flee back to his cave. So he very well could be alive and still doing nasty things. And finally, some more strangeness that comes from these woods. So I found all of this thanks to obscurevermont.com. Author Tim Somerd, who wrote the book Haunted Hikes of Vermont, mentioned that one time while hiking along the Westridge Trail, he heard a ghostly train whistle. This wouldn't normally be weird, but he was miles from any functional railroad and from the old railroad that runs up into South Glastonbury. Another tale happened on Columbus Day in 2008. 2 hunters were hiking along Long Trail, which is a trail just people need to stop hiking on.
Yeah, for sure.
On their hike, they ran into a young man named Dave. Dave worked in the area and had a job of rebuilding the fire towers that were located along the trail. So the three started chatting, and of course, the creepiness of the forest came up in the conversation. Dave told us too about the story he had. So he would spend a lot of time in the mountains restoring the fire towers and would spend extended periods of time in the woods. This particular time, he was camping in Goddard Shelter, so the same shelter that Singley passed when he was lost and miscombobulated in the woods, with some friends. His friends told him that there were many nights when Dave would just sit up in his sleep and laugh uncontrollably, while other nights he would wake up screaming. This was concerning behavior to Dave's friends because they all knew Dave is a down-to-earth, smart, and collected guy, so this nightly behavior was out of character for him. So that right there is the Bennington Triangle for you.
Wow.
A place I can guarantee you I will not go.
I will not go there. It sounds like a death trap.
And I just kept finding all these cool things. I thought there was going to be more, but it was so much on the disappearances. And I was like, well, I got to keep reading about these disappearances.
Yeah, you can't just ignore those at that point.
And you know how much I like my scary wood stories.
Exactly.
All right, okay. Nora, what do you have for us tonight?
So, before I start talking about my story for this week, I have an update on a past story.
Oh, okay.
A past state, I guess. So for Kentucky, I covered...
I was wondering if you were going to find that soon.
Yeah. Okay. So Ronnie O'Banion, the court hearing in his murder case was delayed.
Why?
According to WBKO.com, there has been another delay for a family waiting for accountability for Kazmira Nash's death. Ronnie O'Banion, the DJ for Jack Harlow, was accused of shooting and killing Nash. And then, of course, her friend had been shot and killed supposedly by Ronnie as well.
Yeah, in the past.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, her family spoke about the delays, and they said, I feel sadness because had my cousin's case been treated with urgency, I wouldn't have had to look to the right at Kazmira's family. I believe Kazmira wholeheartedly would still be alive. So this was actually a family member of the other person who got killed, speaking about if the case hadn't been delayed, then this would never have happened.
Dang.
Basically, hearing was delayed again, and it's very vague about why. An investigator said that when they last checked, ballistics still were not processed. She said police told her the delays had nothing to do with the fact that O'Banion is the DJ for Jack Harlow, and Lee just said that it's because of just normal court reasons. But it's still annoying because, like...
And I think it's interesting that she had to say the delay's not because he's a DJ.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
when you have to point out something like that, it makes it seem more suspicious why you're pointing it out.
Definitely. It, like, brings more attention to it, because I didn't think that until she said that.
Yeah. And how long did ballistics take to get back?
So I don't know. I think it really depends on the case. I don't know exactly how long it should take, but apparently it's pushing this case back. O'Banion is still on home incarceration, and his pre-trial was moved to December. So he's on home lockdown. He's not even in jail right now.
You poor thing.
I know.
I feel like home incarceration shouldn't even be a term.
Yeah. O'Banion's attorney says that they needed more time to go through more than 297 pages of discovery, which includes photos, videos, and 911 calls from the night of Kazmira's death. So I guess it's like they could be trying to push it back, because I think legally they can if they say that they need to look at everything.
You can add extensions and stuff, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but I mean, there were multiple witnesses, so I don't know what they're trying to dig up there, but...
Well, our justice system hasn't been the best with witnesses lately.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that is the little update on that case, and hopefully I will have an update in December when he finally goes to trial, so stay tuned. So this week I'm covering a case about a couple who decided to travel to a park in a van about a month ago, and something very horrible happened. And no, I'm not talking about Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. I was going to say, wait. I am talking about a different couple, and their story is so similar. It is so disturbing. The time frame is similar, like everything. Very similar. So we're going to dive into that.
But not nearly as much coverage, because I haven't heard of it.
Not nearly as much coverage. And I mean, this happened a month ago, so there should be some over a month ago, almost 2 months ago at this point. But yeah, barely any coverage. I hadn't heard about it. So this case took place only a month ago. And so when I was looking up cases, I was like, I'm not going to do this one. Like, it's too recent.
Yeah.
But I was looking for other cases for like an hour, and I kept coming back to this because I was like, I cannot believe this. So I'm definitely going to have to update on this one, but I had to cover it.
Yeah.
So Joseph and Emily Ferlazzo met on a dating app. That's apparently what Emily's friend said. Joseph was about 40 at the time, and Emily was about 20, so they had about a 20-year age gap, which, I mean, it could be fine, or it could be red flags, but I think there's valid reasons to see red flags in that.
Yeah.
They married during the pandemic, and in October of this year, they left for a trip to celebrate their first wedding anniversary. And
so, like a month ago.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep. And what better way to do that than a scenic Vermont camping trip?
Okay.
So the couple left Northfield, New Hampshire, which is where they were from, on Friday, October 15th. They drove the converted bus that was also their home, which they lived in on Emily's parents' property. They traveled a little more than 2 hours to Bolton, Vermont, a rural town in the western foothills of the Green Mountains, like you talked about, 30 miles east of Burlington and the shores of Lake Champlain. Joseph's sister and her boyfriend had rented an Airbnb nearby, so the plan was for them to meet up with Joseph's sister and her boyfriend, and they would have their own space in their converted bus, but then they would also hang out with them in the Airbnb.
I mean, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, but on Monday, October 18th, Joseph returned home without Emily.
Yeah, this is
super
really
similar.
Yeah.
He told her parents they'd gotten into an argument in a parking lot that previous Saturday. And mind you, it is Monday now.
Mm-hmm.
That is 2 whole days earlier that he is saying he has not seen her. And this is the first time he's telling anyone that he hasn't seen her. 2 days. He said he'd restrained her when she tried to leave and she'd kicked him in the groin. And after that, he told her parents he'd left to go to the store, and Emily had told him she was going to get an Uber back to New Hampshire, which, can you, like, try to come
Vermont?
up? Yeah, can you, like, try to come up with a better story? Because that's the stupidest excuse I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah,
Like, you think this girl was going to get an Uber? Like, no, she would call a friend to get her. Like, she wouldn't take an Uber.
Or she'd go to her, it was his sister.
Yeah, it was his side, so she probably felt awkward.
Yeah.
So he claims that her saying she was going to get an Uber was the last that he had ever heard from her. Emily's stepmom, Prudy Schwartz, later said, quote, "Who waits 2.5 days to even tell anybody that their significant other is missing? If you wait 48 hours to call the cops, you tell family, you say something, you don't, keep it to yourself."
Yep.
Which I couldn't have said better myself. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
After speaking with Joseph, Emily's mother and stepfather reported her missing. They told police they knew of 3 or 4 incidences of domestic violence in the couple's relationship, and that they'd seen Emily with scratches and bruises, and that Emily had told her mom that that the scratches and bruises had been caused by a physical altercation with Joseph. So clearly it was an abusive relationship. Meanwhile, Joseph drove his red Jeep Wrangler back to Vermont, another red car.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just past midnight on October 19th, according to a Vermont police officer's affidavit, somebody named Spencer Lemons called 911 saying Joseph had just confessed to killing his wife. Spencer, whose relationship to Joseph has not been specified, but I believe he's a friend, said that he'd been giving Joseph a ride to his camper, which was parked at a residence in the town of St. Albans, Vermont, about an hour northwest of Bolton, where Emily and Joseph were staying.
I said St. Albans in my story, too.
I mean, it is a small state, but still. I know. As they approached the bus, Lemons asked Joseph why there were state troopers around the camper. According to an affidavit, Joseph told him that it was because Emily was inside and that she was not alive. Lemons asked if he'd killed her, and Joseph replied yes. At that point, Lemons said he kicked Joseph out of his car and called the cops. Both men left the area, and officers found Joseph later at a nearby gas station, which makes sense that his friend called the cops because they knew where to find him. He agreed to speak with investigators and was taken in for questioning. So now it's Tuesday. Under police questioning on Tuesday, Joseph revealed their trip had not been a peaceful fall getaway that it may have appeared to be. He said that after they'd arrived in Bolton, he and Emily had started to argue. According to the statement, which was released as part of the criminal complaint against him, they spent some time with his sister and her boyfriend before returning to their camper that night and continuing to fight. He said she punched and kicked him in the arm and groin during the altercation. Which, like, yes, maybe that happened, but if you see pictures, like, she's tiny. Like, what? After things calmed down, Emily laid down on her bed in the camper, and Joseph told cops she laid there 5 to 10 minutes. Then he grabbed a Glock handgun from a cabinet, jumped on top of her, and fired 2 shots into her head. So they're not even fighting at this point.
No.
Literally, she's not even facing him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that was.
What nationality is she?
She's white.
Oh.
Yeah. But their last name is Ferlazzo, so I guess that sounds Italian. But yeah.
Well, just wondering why it wouldn't have gotten as much media attention.
She's a white blonde.
Yeah, and normally minorities never get the attention they should be getting.
That's why it's so interesting, is because, like, their story is literally so similar, minus the age difference.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh my god, yeah, I forgot about the age difference.
Dark features, yeah, he has dark features, she has light blonde features. They were the same, her and Gabby were the exact same age, like, so similar.
This is really chilling.
Yeah. So according to Joseph's statement to police, after he shot her, he panicked. He put a garbage bag over her head to collect the blood and moved her into the camper's bathroom. He left her there while he went to get breakfast at his sister and her boyfriend's Airbnb. Like, what? After breakfast, he moved the camper to a friend's house in St. Albans and dismembered her body using a handsaw, which, like, that friend should be charged with accessory to murder if they were home, you know? Like, or if they knew something was going on,
or if they
better
offered
be
the
charged.
handsaw.
Exactly.
Like, sir, why do you need a handsaw?
He told police he cut off her hands, feet, legs, and head. Once finished, he put the body parts in garbage bags and left them in the camper. The fact that he left the camper to dismember her body and then returned to the camper to put the bags of her body parts back in the camper makes no sense. Do you get that?
No.
So
no,
his DNA is all over the bags.
Obviously.
Yeah. And I can see if he was saying that someone broke into the camper and did this, but then they wouldn't have removed the body. Like, they would have just done it there.
And you can also see, too, about, the lividity of the blood and stuff. You can see where it pools, and where it pools is how the person was laying when they were killed.
Yeah.
So if it's different, or if that part that it looks bruised usually, if it's flipped over or something, you can tell the body's been moved. I mean, I know she was dismembered, but I feel like you could still tell. Detectives and investigators would probably be able to tell that the body was moved. She didn't just it's not this case doesn't say that a person came in. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So it just doesn't make sense that he would have moved her body and not dismembered it in there. Like, I think he was just literally so stupid and panicked that he was just completely sloppy.
Yep.
By the way, I wasn't sure how or where to fit in this detail, but the couple shared a dog together named Remington, and Remington was found unharmed at the home of Joseph's friend. So I have no idea if it's the same friend whose home Joseph dismembered Emily's body in, and he just brought the dog, or if a friend was staying with
the dog while they were
gone.
Exactly,
watching the dog. I don't know, but the dog's okay. There's pictures online of them with their dog. Yeah. So that same day, police found Emily's dismembered body in the camper. She had been shot twice in the head. There were 8 bags in the camper, one of which contained what appeared to be a severed human leg, but was missing the foot. They also located what they considered, quote, other evidence that corroborated Joseph Verlazzo's account of the killing, end quote. Authorities sent the bags to the medical examiner for autopsy. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this case has some extreme parallels to the high-profile case of Gabby Petito.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, which started out as a search for a missing person after her fiancé, Brian, returned from a road trip in a converted van without her at the beginning of September. Exact same thing happened.
Yeah.
Returned without her and
took days to tell someone.
Exactly, took days. Petito was found strangled in Wyoming, and then Emily was found shot in Vermont. And a police video surfaced of Gabby crying in the back of a patrol car following a physical altercation with Laundrie, and it seems that Emily and Joseph had a very similar relationship with physical violence and just a lot of yelling. They both lived nomadic lifestyles. And researchers or people in the psychology field, I was looking it up, and they were saying that a nomadic lifestyle can actually make it easier for an abuser to isolate a victim from their support systems, and small living quarters can cause tempers to flare.
I get that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the person wouldn't have an escape, going to their family's house or going to work or something.
And it's easy for, the person doing the abuse to take their phone, and they're completely alone. So they're at the mercy of that person. A woman named Maureen Curtis, who's vice president of criminal justice programs at Safe Horizon, which is a national domestic violence hotline, told Rolling Stone, which I got a lot of this information from, she told Rolling Stone, quote, "We saw it with COVID and the increase with physical violence or family violence, where we saw more reports of escalated violence between family members. People were confined to tight spaces. So yes, it's not surprising if I'm traveling around in an RV, that could lead to an escalation of violence if there's already some type of domestic violence," end quote.
Yeah.
So I think what she said at the end is super important. This is happening with people who are already monsters and people who, in most cases, there was domestic violence in the relationship before, and it just got worse when they couldn't escape the person.
Yeah.
And it also shows that the COVID or quote van life, it doesn't just create monsters out of anywhere. Out of nowhere, it kind of makes them worse in a way.
Brings them out more.
Exactly. Emily was described by her friends and family as someone who was always happy and loved to sing. Her stepmom, Prudy Schwartz, said that Emily was the girl that ran around in polka dot pants and a striped shirt dancing. I know. Emily's stepmom said she met her stepdaughter's husband just once, which that in itself is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
And Prudy knew right away that something wasn't right. She said, which is just the podcast I'm listening to. She said, quote, "Something didn't click the first time we met him. I don't know what it was about him, but we didn't like him. It's something about his eyes. He looked evil in his eyes," end quote.
Ooh.
Which is true. I will post a picture of them, and his eyes do look scary. Like,
Ew.
I mean, hindsight's 2020, but they do look scary.
Yeah. And you can tell a lot about a person by their eyes.
Oh, for sure. Joseph Verlazzo was arraigned earlier this month and is being held without bond. He entered a plea of not guilty, which I think that he's going to try to claim self-defense, which is such BS. She wasn't even looking at him. She's like half his size.
Yeah.
He could have literally just walked away.
Yeah, if she was laying on the bed, it's not self-defense.
Exactly. When Rolling Stone reached out to the defense attorney assigned to Ferlazzo for comment, Defender General Matthew Valerio replied, quote, "Mr. Ferlazzo is innocent as a matter of law with the full statutory and constitutional rights and defenses available to him. The client retains that status until such time as the state proves its case beyond a reasonable doubt or the client decides to waive his rights and change his plea," end quote.
And what's horrible is she's not there to defend herself.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's definitely without a reasonable doubt that he did it. So we'll just wait for that to happen. So that is what happened with Emily Verlazzo. And I hope that Joseph rots in jail for the rest of his life. But it's like infuriating that he is pleading not guilty.
And when did they say the trial was going to be?
There were no details on that. Yeah, because it's so new.
Yeah.
So the trial date hasn't even been set yet.
Dang.
Yeah. Super eerie how close in time the parallels, like so like things were still blowing up in the news about Gabby and Brian at this time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy, like, but
this, and it's
so sad.
Yeah, it's just weird that like you hear so much about Gabby, but I heard nothing about this.
Exactly. And like you said, like it's a lot of times it's like minorities whose stories kind of get brushed to the side. They don't have airtime, which is horrible. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a common demographic in the van life people. It is typically like, you know, Caucasians.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm just talking in circles. It's very interesting, and I will definitely update.
Yes.
It's just super sad.
Yes. So our next couple episodes, Nora will just kind of give us any information.
Yeah.
As you hear it.
Yeah. I mean, I might not have any for a few episodes because it's so new, but probably in a year from now, I'll be talking about it. You know?
Seriously.
Like, you never know.
It seems like that's always what happens. It's like with the case we did in Wisconsin, the Slender Man stabbing, like, that verdict that we got, or like the update, was like 4 years later.
Yeah, exactly. So you never know.
So if we're still here in 4 years.
I know.
Which I hope we are.
I know. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to give us a follow on Instagram at A Scary State Podcast. And you can also follow us on YouTube and on Facebook if you just look up A Scary State Podcast. We would love for you guys to check us out.
Yes.
And then make sure to give us a good review on Apple Podcasts, and we will read your review on here and give you a shout out.
Yes, we love it.
Yes.
And send us any scary stories or paranormal experiences or anything to ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com.
All right, guys. Well, stay scary.
Stay safe.